We don't need no stinking luck.
We don't
Good
need
night,
luck.
people. Welcome, everyone. Welcome,
Coming in.
everyone.
Ooh, look, the numbers are just picking way up. All right, welcome everybody. We want to welcome everybody to our presentation today, to our vodcast. And there's one special person, actually two people that we want to especially welcome, and one of them is going to welcome the other one. But I want to reintroduce to some of you, and to introduce for the very first time to some of you, our long lost partner in Every Other Wednesday, our friend Jeff Tobe. Jeff? Ah, there he is. Okay, and over the period of time, he has grown long facial hair.
Since I've seen you guys that, you know, actually this looks kind of nice. I might keep it for my next presentation. I don't know. Hi,
You look
guys.
very wise.
Hi, welcome.
You know, it
I
hasn't
thought that
been a
was a
long
filter.
time.
Congratulations on puberty, Jeff.
I hope that didn't hurt. I hope that didn't hurt too much when you snatched that off. Okay.
But anyway.
All right. I'm out. We want to hear from Jeff. Jeff,
I'm so
welcome
excited to
again.
be back, and I missed you guys, and I hope I won't even ask if you missed me. So forget it. But you'll notice we have an extra face as well, and it's my pleasure to introduce our co-host this week because he's got quite a story, and we'll hear about that in a second. But Joe Roberts, aka the Skid Row CEO. I love that, Joe. I like rhyming things anyway. So he's an expert on resiliency and change. He experienced both catastrophic failure. I promised myself I'd be able to say that word, but I didn't have much luck. And extraordinary success. He teaches how to overcome the roadblocks that get in the way of high performance. Since 1989, guys, Joe has acquired 2 college diplomas. Now listen carefully. He's become the CEO of one of Vancouver's leading multimedia companies. He walked across Canada. He achieved more success than he could ever have imagined, because he's been recognized by Maclean magazine as one of the 10 Canadians who make a difference. He won the BC Courage to Come Back Award. He received the Ontario Premier's Award for Business. He was given an honorary doctorate from Laurentian University and was recognized by the Senate of Canada with an Canada 150 medal. Top that, any one of you. Also, finally, he's the author of a great book called The Push for Change, Stepping into Possibilities. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah,
And
I appreciate
before I'm
you.
done,
There you go. Yeah.
look at this progression in pictures that I found of Joe on the internet. You know, that's from Skid Row, I assume, to CEO right there, right,
Yeah.
Joe?
That one
Joe.
picture on the left is that picture right there is me in 1989. Hey, I appreciate you not bringing up my criminal record. It's really nice to be here today, to be cast amongst this motley crew. You know, in 1989, I was homeless. I pushed a shopping cart around Vancouver's downtown east side. I struggled with mental health. I struggled with addiction, homelessness, and poverty. And, you know, I just couldn't seem to find my way out. And I think that negative life experiences really give me assets today. As, you know, I look out in the world right now and I see a lot of people struggling, companies struggling. What I know is that on the other side of adversity is, you know, a tremendous amount of good stuff that we've maybe yet to mine. When I was at my very, very worst in downtown Vancouver, I remember sitting down beside this guy. His name was Gus, and he had these beautiful blue eyes, and he was just sort of filled with, I don't know, love, compassion. I don't know what you would describe it as, but I remember him looking at me, and he said, "You know, Joe," he said, "there's more to you than you can see." And at the time, what was standing in front of him is a guy with, you know, dirty hair, black fingernails from digging in dumpsters, clothes I've been wearing for months. But what was interesting about what Gus said to me is that he saw past my probability and saw my possibility. I'll say that again. He saw past my probability and spoke to my possibility. And I think the greatest thing that we can do today is create a place of possibility mindset, not seeing the world as it is, but how it could be. Possibility mindset is what put us on the moon. Possibility mindset is what drove Dr. Martin Luther King to give that speech about having a dream of collapsing systemic racism. Possibility is what took a young boy from Port Coquitlam in Canada with one leg, Terry Fox, to have the courage to want to run across the country for a cause that was near and dear to him. I believe in possibility mindset because Gus was right. Thanks to my mom and a police officer, I got a second chance. I entered into an alcohol and drug treatment program back in and around the Toronto, Ontario, Canada area. And after 6 months of treatment, I had this counselor who tricked me into going back to college. And I say that he tricked me because there's no way that I was going to go back to college. I just didn't think I was smart. I just didn't think I had it in me, right? But you know, that's what good leaders do, is they get you to do stuff outside your comfort zone. Anyways, he tricked me, and I ended up going back to college, and something wonderful happened. You know, for years I lived in this smallness because, you know, I had these false beliefs about who I was and how I fit into the world. And a lot of it had to do with, you know, some trauma that happened as a child, but I didn't believe in myself. But great leaders and teachers and guys like Gus and my mom, who never stopped believing in me, encouraged me to take action in the face of that negative emotion. And something wonderful happened, and I started to bloom, I started to flower. And I started to get A's and B's. And finally, after 3.5 years, I walked across that stage, they called out my name, they said, Joe Roberts, Dean's List. And I graduated with a 3.94 GPA. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. You know, life is a handful of really good days and bad days. And that was one of the, you know, best days of my life. And I remember going down to where my mom was sitting, and she was just beaming with pride. And she gave me a kiss in the cheek. She said, I love you, son. I'm so proud of you. And what's interesting about that day is it should have been, you know, just all warm and fuzzy, but there was a part of me that felt a tinge of regret. Because what I knew is that there's so many people out there that have possibility, but they don't have my mom, and they haven't met someone like Gus, someone who just believes in them to cheer them on. And I think that's what we need a lot today. There's people right in our circle that we can cheer on. We have no idea what they may be going through. And so I'm always looking for those opportunities. Anyways, graduating college, I went out into the business world. I had all of these transferable skills. I knew how to solve problems that didn't have solutions. You know, when the pandemic hit last year, I remember finding myself in real familiar emotional territory. And, you know, I knew how to solve problems. I had a great work ethic, and I was used to the uncertainty, waking up, you know, with challenges and uncertainty and anxiety. And so I got busy. I ended up going into the business world as a sales guy. A friend of mine started a technology company, and 12 years later, I remember driving my big car to the office in downtown Vancouver. And when I got to the office, sitting on my desk was a Canadian business, which is it's a big deal in Canada, and I was on the cover of it as a celebrated entrepreneur. I was basically the Canadian version of the American dream. Now, that's a good story if it ended there, but I made a promise 12 years prior that if I was to get off the street, I would do something to pay it forward. And so in 2016, along with help from my business partner, Dr. Sean Richardson, we put a campaign together to do something to raise awareness and to give back. And what that looked like was me telling my story in the form of a cross-Canada engagement project. And so following in the steps of great heroes in Canada like Terry Fox and Rick Hansen, I decided that I wanted to raise money and awareness to help kids at risk, kids like me, kids that struggle with mental health and early childhood trauma and addiction and mental health issues and housing insecurity. And so we took a shopping cart, which was a symbol of chronic homelessness, the thing that we're trying to avoid for every kid, not just in Canada, but around the world. And we were going to push that shopping cart across Canada. The entire campaign was built on a possibility mindset, because at the time I was 49 years old. I was about 70 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I would categorize myself as a non-athlete. I would have got picked last for the ping pong team, you know, when I was in high school. But we did it. Over the course of 17 months, I got up every single morning and I pushed that shopping cart 24 kilometers, which is about 15 miles. And when I was done, I'd walked 11,375,000 steps, or 9,064 kilometers. And for our American friends, that is the distance from New York to the Santa Monica Pier, back to New York, with one Canadian winter thrown in, just for dexterity. I believe that we are at a watershed moment in human history where we're going to look back at this time and we're going to call it before, as each one of us wakes up to what's possible for ourselves, what's possible for our families, what's possible for our communities, what's possible for our country, and what's possible for this planet. And when we have the courage to step forward, like Gus encouraged me to do, and pick up the mantle that's our opus, we can and we will change the world. I know that because the first time I had that thought, I was sitting on a piece of cardboard in downtown Vancouver asking the world for change. Anyways, I'm really honored and humbled to be here today, and just want to thank all these great guys for having me on the program. And hey, if you're on this call and you're listening to this and you're struggling, just remember that there is more to you than you can see. And my only instruction would be to do something positive in your life today, to take some action, to get up off that couch.
Wow, Joe, that's incredible. I'm just looking at, I've got 5,000 steps today. Is that like the start? I can get from Pittsburgh to Pittsburgh with that. So.
Well, Jeff,
No,
I was cursing the fact the other day that I had to push a shopping cart like 3 aisles over at Costco. So now I feel a little.
What an incredible story!
I gotta say, I didn't realize when Jeff, you said we were gonna have a guest. I didn't realize we were inviting Forrest Gump. So that's
it's funny, Sanjay, somewhere in the middle of Newfoundland or Nova Scotia, I can't remember what it was, but I actually found a yellow Frisbee with the happy face, just like Forrest. And there's a picture of me holding this Frisbee grinning like a Cheshire cat.
That's awesome.
What an amazing thing. And so, it brings us to the entire theme of today's show, guys, which is really resiliency. I mean, that's what Joe exemplifies and always has. And so we know what personal resiliency is. I'm going to ask the audience first. So bite your tongues for a minute, guys. I want to ask them a question. How would you define corporate resiliency? And then we'll come back to this. How would you define corporate resiliency? Put it in the chat box. And Mike, I think you're the chat box herder today.
I am.
So tell us what you're
The
seeing.
answers are coming in fast and furious. We have exactly no
None?
responses yet. Don't be shy.
You have to give them a minute to type.
It's because they're talking about a pivot. Yes, everyone drink.
Pivot.
Pivot, yeah, drinking game, pivot.
Pivot.
All right.
The ability
Until
to
they
pivot.
do. Oh, is that what somebody
Okay,
said?
being able to ride the ups and downs of the economy while still retaining culture, employee satisfaction.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Now we're going ability to scale up and down to meet shareholder needs. Company that grows and allows their employees to grow and stay relevant. Flexibility is a key word, of course. Working through adversity, then getting back to a new normal, focused on the workers and their needs ahead of corporate profit objectives.
Wow, that's a huge one. So Richard, how would you define it? What's corporate resiliency?
How would I define it?
Yeah, anything different?
Yeah, I think I think it's very much related to personal resiliency. It's a matter of bouncing back. When we think about a particular object that is resilient, it is elastic. It's able to bounce back to its original shape or form. And so when we think about a corporate resiliency, it's the ability to weather those kinds of things. And I mean, we'll talk later about what you have to have in order to be resilient, but I think it shows that we're not necessarily going to be the same when we bounce back. In fact, we may be stronger. If you think about muscles, I understand that when people exercise, I've been told that when people exercise, they stretch those muscles, that they tear a little bit and they come back even stronger. I haven't been able to do that in 13 months because I haven't been to my YMCA, but I guess I could maybe use some equipment here in the house. Anyway, so yeah, when those things stretch, they come back hopefully a little bit stronger.
Yeah, and before anybody else's answers, I'm going to ask the second question so people can put their answers in the box, and then we'll come back to, we'll still talk about number one. The second one is, why is it important that an organization be resilient? But in the meantime, Joe, can you add to what you think corporate resiliency means?
Well, I think that there needs to the pandemic has allowed us to acknowledge roadblocks are part of that is just part of the game. So one of the models that we worked through the push for change was to recognize there are three things that are necessary to create possibility, to build resilience. One is the actions that we take. Two is so that's A. I is the inspiration or purpose. And R is the roadblocks, both internal and external. And I think the big thing right now with resiliency is the acknowledgement of the macro and internal roadblocks. And one of the things that we may not be getting as well is that you're absolutely right, Richard. When you go to the gym, you stress yourself out and then you get stronger, but it's actually the recovery that makes you stronger. And so in order to build resilience, there needs to be that rest and recuperation. And I don't think we're doing that well. We live in this context that I'm too busy, I got to do this, and I'm burning weekends, and I'm working late, and I'm not doing good with boundaries. But we know that there isn't a pro athlete on the planet that doesn't effectively rest. Tom Brady wins at 43 because he's got a science to his recovery and wellness.
Yeah. So are you saying, Joe, that an organization shouldn't push itself too much so that it's going to be in a position to respond well to stress so that it can be resilient?
No, I'm saying that there has to be coupled. We tend to think of KPIs and performance and well-being as two separate buckets, but they're not. They're on top of each other. Wellness is not, oh yeah, we've got this performance stuff over here and KPIs, and we got to hit these targets. And yeah, we're going to take a look at health and well-being. I was talking to the president of the Canadian Police Chiefs Association, and there's just this massive shift inside policing to need to embrace wellness. And I said, well, if the chiefs and the senior leaders don't model this culturally, then it's not going to happen, right? And so the wellness and the rest, that is essential to the growth. Remember, you wouldn't go to the gym Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. You wouldn't do back-to-back marathons, but that's how we're working right now. And we're not doing the rest is where we get strong. Now, at any given time, we're moving up and down a continuum of wellness and resiliency. It's not like we get there. It's just like the gym. We don't get there and stay there. We got to constantly habitualize those things that are necessary. I mean, people call me resilient, but I'm not resilient. I just, maybe today I'm doing well, but I can have a bad day just like anybody else.
Yeah, and you guys, you guys know I do a lot of work with project managers worldwide, and they brought in 10 years ago, a decade ago, the idea of being agile, and that's simply being able to turn on a dime. It's so closely related to resilience that I think organizations need to be agile right now, especially and the last year and a half has only proved this to us. It's not that we weren't. It's not that a lot of organizations weren't ready, but it's just brought out the fact that we must be able to turn on a dime no matter what happens. We don't know what's coming next, right? So let's get to the second question. Michael, why is it important that an organization be resilient?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the chat box. Not going to get to everybody, but thank you all for your comments. A lot of people talking about the need to change and be flexible. Of course, that change is happening all the time at an ever increasing rate. People talked about how our decisions today affect our performance tomorrow, the importance of trust and why that matters, the need to stay competitive, to stay relevant, to adapt to our employees and our customers' needs. So lots of reasons to.
Excellent. Sanjay, do you have why would you say we have to be resilient?
Yeah, well, I actually want to point out, I love what Richard said. I use two words to define resiliency, and it's bounce back. But the other one I want to really kind of emphasize is, to me, it's actually a form of stubbornness. And the reason I'm saying that, it kind of shows your true color. So if you are like cruising along and you hit a hiccup, either up or down, do you kind of come back to the mean, right? Is it what's the word, coming back to the mean?
Coming back. Returning.
Anyway, it's just a math term. Regression to the mean. So that's what resiliency is. So if you have a healthy corporate culture and there's a hiccup in it, you'll return to that corporate culture. So you can be a resilient organization and still be a pile of crap. What I mean by that, because if you have an unhealthy culture and then someone infuses something that brings it up, but you're resilient and you bounce back to the mean, you still have an unhealthy culture. right? So I think that stubborn piece really needs to come in play. And there's a big element of proactiveness that needs to be established here. So resiliency isn't always good. Resiliency means just being able to bounce back to the norm. Why is it important? Because if you have a healthy, normal culture and you are able to bring in people and have employees be engaged and have job satisfaction go up and turnover go down and be highly productive and have great performance, then even if you have a hiccup like a COVID-19 pandemic, you will eventually return and regress to the mean and continue to launch forward.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, well,
So,
I
Michael,
feel like I do not need to attend my next scheduled math class at this point.
Yeah.
Regress into the
Good to know.
mean. That's what the term I was looking for. Always the math nerd. Shut up, Richard.
I just know the word regression from therapy. That's all. Oh, that's a whole other thing. Sorry.
Something totally different, Jeff. Totally different.
Exactly. So, Michael, I read a great article on resiliency, and there were 5 things they said that were required to be resilient. So, because you've been watching the chat box, I want to hear from you. One of them was transparency and communication. Can you? I know you're big on that. Can you talk to that?
I can, Jeff. Yeah, I think from a cultural perspective, from an organization perspective, communication is everything, and everything is communication and transparency. We know there's a correlation with resiliency because we have to create a psychologically safe environment for our employees to be able to speak up. We have to involve them and make them feel like they have co-ownership in our future, or they're not going to be very resilient. You're going to break trust without open and honest communication. So I think it's critical, especially during challenging times like we're experiencing, have a drink, that we be extra intentional about investing in communication, but also thinking about how we communicate with our employees, making sure that we are asking them good, smart questions to involve them, making sure we are asking them for their input so they feel involved, making sure we're giving them opportunities to speak up and voice their concerns, and thinking about how we communicate. And I would be curious to hear Joe's response to this. I think we need to communicate in a way that reflects a growth mindset attitude as opposed to a fixed mindset. And I would love to ask Joe that question, if that's okay, Jeff. When you now reflect back on your life and what you went through at your lowest point, would you consider yourself at that time, at your lowest point, do you think you would have had a kind of fixed mindset at that point? And somehow, obviously, something happened where you shifted to a growth mindset.
Yeah, definitely, Michael. And I was never really across Carol Dweck's growth mindset, fixed mindset stuff back then, but I am now. In fact, I have a 17-year-old daughter that grew up on that stuff because I fed it to her. I lived with a compromised sense of self-worth. And I think we all have that. We have stories about our limitations. I frame it as possibility versus probability. Probability is looking at the world and seeing it as it is and how it will likely be tomorrow. Human beings are excellent at recognizing patterns. It's one of the reasons we've survived this long. The problem is there's no innovation in that. There's no newness in that. There's no disruptive technology in that, and there's no better you in that. Now, I believe that we have no obligation to be the same person we were yesterday. And in order to do that, we have to think differently about who we are. And the key component of that is taking action. However, if you've got a growth mindset and you say to yourself, I'm dumb, I'm not worth this, then you're really never going to take action because you've already made your mind up. But if I can get you to take some action, this is where leadership comes in. If I can get you to take some action and get you to see for yourself, and you do something, get a result, do something, get a result, then you'll see for yourself that belief that you had about yourself really wasn't true. And once that begins to happen, now you've got a body of proof to do the next hard thing and the next hard thing. I'm the same person I was 20, 30 years ago, except for a couple million actions that have proven to me that absolutely anything is possible. And so now when I'm struggling with the emotional uncertainty, I know it's just a certain amount of actions away. You know, when I talk to high school kids, I'll frame it and say, you remember that big exam or that test or that project that you were uncertain about, but you did it anyway, and you found out it wasn't that bad? That's possibility or growth fixed mindset. So absolutely. And the way to bust through all of that is just action. Get somebody to take some little tiny steps and they'll see it for themselves, right?
All right, great. Let's go on to the second one. The second thing that's needed in a resilient organization. This one is going to be yours, Richard. Is a safe. They say a safe and secure community. How do you interpret that?
Well, the way I interpret it, and if we look at organizational culture, one of the facets or one of the tenets of effective organizational cultures is that they work hard to create a safe and secure work environment. Well, since about March the 13th of 2020, the work environment has been vastly changed and probably will always remain vastly changed. And then we talk about resilience, and are we going to resilience ourselves back to a more traditional on-site workplace? And when we put all of that together, it really gets huge. It gets real tangled up and real gnarly really fast. And some of the things that I've thought about and have talked about with clients and people whom I hope will become clients are that, when we talk about safety in the workplace now, if your workplace is partially at home and sometimes it's in the office and some people are coming into the office, what are we doing with COVID protocols? In different countries, different states, different provinces have different laws. Let's put the laws aside and think about in our organization, what do we want to do so that we create a safe and secure environment for everyone? What about changing the physical layout of the workplace when we do come back to make it safe? We're seeing now cubicles being enclosed in glass and plexiglass. Well, that does some good things. It allows everybody to be on Zooms, in their little cubicles rather than a cacophony of sound. But what does that do to our open office concept? What are we going to have to do to counteract the changes of that? And then as the lines between work and life get thinner and blurrier all the time, we have to think about some difficult questions. There was a time when in most organizational cultures, for a parent to be working from home and have his or her children in the background would have been absolute no-no. And now we know that's not such a no-no. And I'll go even one step further in a conversation that I had when someone said that this was a young mother who said that she had a need to nurse her child during the time of a meeting. And yet her culture says you always have to be on camera. Well, she was not going to be on camera. She nursed her child, and she said that worked beautifully, not only for the child, but for her. Now, I have never participated in this activity, but it seems to me like it would be a fairly single focus kind of a thing. I can't imagine doing that and doing anything else, but I'm told that you can. And so she was saying, we have to rethink some of this. Yeah, being in a safe and secure, I need to make sure my children are safe. I need to be able to work and be able to take care of everything else at the same time. So we may have to rethink this whole idea of being so rigid and look at the objective. If the objective is to create a safe and secure environment, physically, emotionally, psychologically, so people can contribute their very best, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to say one last quick thing. I just saw yesterday that General Motors CEO, Mary Barra, has decided that people at General Motors, as traditional and old school an organization as they come, said now we're going to have people continue to work from home even after the threat of the pandemic is over. And what was it she said that was so great? I love when she said it. She said, I've got it right here on my phone. She said in a LinkedIn blog post that where work permits, employees now have the flexibility to work where they can have the greatest impact on achieving our goals. That's the way to look at it, I think.
Totally, that's awesome.
I thought the chairman of GM texted you when you're looking at your phone.
Well, she does. Mary and I were tight, but still.
I see, got it. Well, we're quickly going through these. Let's go on to the next one. Thank you, Richard. And I love the way that you mentioned, by the way, psychological safety zone, because it's not just physical, right? I think, Michael, you talk about this a lot. It's just how do we create that safe space where it's okay, one, to come back to work, one, to, next, to share ideas. That's a huge part of resiliency as well. Mm-hmm. All right, Sanjay, I'm not leaving you out. The next one that they said was, and it's, one of those, duh, but I know you talked to this, and that is you have to have effective leadership.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Sanjay. That was brilliant.
And
You
I
can
mean,
always count on Sanjay to say something absolutely nails it.
there you go. Exactly. Thank you, Shelley. So saying, we know this, right? If you have the greatest of intentions and you don't have buy-in from the leadership, the chances of success are minimal. Not impossible, but minimal. It goes to probability and possibility. At the same time, even if the people on the front line or on the lower levels of the organization aren't really buying it, if you have a dedicated leader, a charismatic, knows what they want, dictates outcomes more so than processes, and it's not micromanaging, chances of success are ridiculously higher. The analogy I like to use, I've had this conversation many times where I say, if you take a cup of coffee and you put an ice cube in it, what happens? And people go, well, the ice cube melts. I go, great. But what happens if you take that cup of coffee and you bring it to the North Pole? And then what happens is, well, the coffee freezes. Yeah, so the coffee is influenced by what's going on around them. And so what effective leadership is able to do is, that's exactly what culture is are we creating a culture that freezes the coffee or that melts the ice cubes, right? And that's essentially what leadership is doing. It's going, here is the vision. This is the end in mind that we see, and we want your buy-in. And this is how we're going to do it. And this is how we're going to engage people. And we're going to use the psychological and physical and technological resources we have to have people buy in. Because ultimately, that's exactly what it is. If people have a buy-in, they will figure out a way to make it work. And if they don't, they will figure out a way to sabotage it.
Yeah.
So ultimately, this is what we talk about every week. We talk about, what is culture? Culture is the idea of getting people to buy in, whatever the concept and the idea is. So yeah, you want this thing to be sustainable, you need the leadership buy-in. You can make it work in small pockets, but you're not going to have the same sustainability unless you have the higher ups buy-in.
Joe, I mean, when you became CEO of this organization, how did you use the lessons you learned exactly to be a more effective leader? I'm curious. Just maybe in a nutshell.
I didn't. I got a lot of it wrong, and I'll be straight up. I'm a business development guy, and Peter's principle, I was promoted to my level of incompetence. And I built this, company underneath me that just went through like 200% growth every year for like 4 years. It was a couple of guys in their basement, and all of a sudden we've got all these employees and offices, and got to crack a couple $1 million a month to pay the bills. I got a lot of this stuff wrong. Personally, I got it wrong because I was, saying on one hand, hey, we need to take care of ourselves. On the other hand, I'm putting in 75-hour work weeks. So I'm not, just to Sanjay's point, I wasn't modeling what I was telling people to do. And I think there's a lot of that right now. It's like, yes, well-being and resilience, and we got to do all this stuff, but then people are burning the candle at both ends, and so it's not gonna translate. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the lessons that I have today as a thought leader, as a speaker, really come from failed experiences and getting things wrong. There were some things that we got right, like one of the things, and this is why I'm a big fan of Michael's. One of the things that we got right in the company is we knew how to have fun. We knew how to laugh. If I heard laughter going out in the pit, I knew that we were okay this week. But when it got quiet out there, I knew, okay, something's up. Something's not working right. Laughter to me it's like audible hope, right? So there was, some things where yeah, that's just sort of been my experience.
Laughter is audible hope. Michael, you're
love that.
Michael, you're
I'm muted. I'm muted. I love that. I'm writing that quote down, Joe.
I just wrote it
audible
too.
hope. And actually, Patty earlier in the chat box mentioned laughter in terms of being important, and I commented that it's a great barometer, right? It's a great measurement, an indicator of health on
absolutely
on a floor, in a team, in a workplace.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead, Joe.
Sorry, Jeff. Just to add to that, yeah, I think especially now, finding the funny in the chaos. The things that make us smile. When a guy on a skateboard drinking ocean spray can get 66 million whatever views, it tells me that the world needs a smile. It needs things to be hopeful. And as with a guy with a really dark experience, I make fun. I have a lot of fun with my subject matter on stuff that other people can't make fun of because they don't have that lived experience. But the darker you go, sometimes the more funny and the better it is, and it shifts the context of which we look at. Anyways, sorry, Jeff.
No, don't be sorry. Yeah, we love having you here. We don't have to talk as much, so it's great.
Jeff, there's an important question, I think, in the chat box here
Yeah.
that I think we should all address.
But
Kelly
it's
asks,
the Sanjay, so Sanjay has to answer it.
I did.
Oh, he did. Great.
oh, you did, but we can answer it for the group as well. You know, what do you do when your senior folks don't respond the way you want to? When you're a cog in the machine as a frontline employee, what can you do to affect change?
The quick answer is you go back to our old every other Wednesday call called we. So you want a rockin' culture, but your boss doesn't care. Remember we did it. We did a whole session on this.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the smart ass answer. Let's give some real answers.
No, that's a great answer. By the way, it's eowednesday.com.
EOWednesday.com, and they're all there. You know, I'm going to throw a little. I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian. And Kelly, this is absolutely one of the most important questions, and we get it a lot. And one solution, it is not the only solution, and it may not be a workable solution for a lot of people, but some people use that experience to take their success elsewhere and to say, you know, I'm going to take care of myself to the degree. And listen, I know that is not something you can quickly do on a dime. So I don't want to be insensitive about that. But a lot of people have used the fact that their culture is not feeding them the way it needs to begin to initiate a change. And I've talked with so many people who said it was difficult, especially, you know, in this economy, very difficult, but boy, it was the best thing I ever did for my life. So that's one solution out of many that are possible that I would throw out.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say it again. It's about small wins. It's about creating. See, ultimately, everyone in that level of organization has drivers, things that are important to them. The reason the boss is not buying in isn't because he or she is twisting their evil mustache, rubbing their hands together, going, "How are we taking over the world?" They're doing what they believe based on their experience and their value system, what moves the organization forward. So Kelly made reference to, you know, if someone is laughing in our organization, they're given busy work. So for whatever reason, in that culture, the association is if you're laughing, then the belief is you're not doing your work. On the flip side, what Joe is saying, just the opposite. In his cultural belief, if you are laughing, your shoulders come down, you actually are more productive. And I'll say this, neither is right, neither is wrong. It is it a right fit for who you are and who your employees are and who your team is? Because if it makes your skin crawl, the idea of not being able to laugh, then you need to look for an exit strategy. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And so the idea is if you are stuck there and you go, I can't get out, and how do I make the change? Then what you have to recognize is what is the highest value of the senior person? Because it might be recognition. So if you understand that recognition is the most important to them, and you can now somehow associate in their brain how recognition is increased by allowing people to laugh, then they'll allow you to laugh. I mean, that's the mechanics of it. It's understanding what are the core drivers, what is the value system of the people in which you want to change, and then how do you get what you believe is important associated with that so they connect the two. They don't care about laughter. They care about what does laughter represent. So if you can now show them the research, the example that if they laugh, they're actually more productive and it gets you more credibility, they go, I'm in. So that's my.
And you know, real quickly, Sanjay, what you said is a great example of what I have said all along. When we talk about culture, I believe culture can be defined in part by the assumptions that we make. In the example that Kelly gave, the assumption was if you're laughing, you're not working. In organizations with a difficult culture, with different culture like the one Joe mentioned, the assumption is if you're laughing, we're good this week. Very different set of assumptions, very different cultures.
Well, and related to that, Richard, is the whole concept that we've talked about many times of unwritten rules in a workplace.
Yeah.
Right? What are the unwritten rules, and excavating those and having those conversations. What I would say to Kelly and everybody, and a huge focus of my book, The Jerk-Free Workplace, Frontline Leadership, is do not underestimate the power of anybody, regardless of your position. Leadership has nothing to do with job title or position or power. It's about your ability to positively influence the people around you. And I want to suggest, even though it doesn't feel like that always, you have far more power and influence than you probably realize, especially if you find some like-minded people on the front line. I have example after example after example of changes in organizations that were driven from the front line, from people that had no supervisory or budget authority, because they just stepped up and took action to influence changes in a positive way.
Can I just say that the yes, but, and the yes, but is what Sanjay said in a different way, but it's those small wins. Sometimes, you know, I'm in a job where when I retire, I'm going to have a great pension and I can't afford to leave, and that's okay. And so we're also saying it's that those small wins are for you. And maybe you can't change. I don't believe sometimes you can change leadership, you know, change the way they think. Especially, I know we've got a lot of people on here who work for government entities, and I'm very familiar with that. So you know, sometimes it's just those small wins that we have to be satisfied with. Anyway, let's go on.
You can't always stop the rain, but you can bring an umbrella.
Can you change your name from Sanjay Nath to King of analogies? Because I love your analogies.
That's great. Yeah.
Coffee cups in the North Pole.
However, I just have to point out, you can take the coffee cup and put it in your freezer. You don't have to go all the way to the North Pole. But anyway,
very efficient.
So we've basically run out of time. The last one we were going to talk about, and I've talked about it a lot, so I'll just address it quickly, is just being innovative and creative, especially when it comes to technology. You know, when you were talking about that analogy of the rubber band, you know, and that resilience is when it's really stretched out. When it's really stretched out, to me, that's the opportunity for technology, for innovation and creativity. That's when we could look at our competitors and say, what are they doing in turbulent times? That's when we say, what could we do differently? Because right now we're stretched and we need to figure this out. So guys, thank you so much for the conversation. Michael, you're our host next month. First of all, I just want to thank Joe so much for being here. It was kind of last minute, and he was resilient enough, flexible enough to change his schedule and be with us. So let's give Joe a hand. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah. By the way, in the chat, a lot of people saying,
yeah, there's lots of love for you in the chat box, Joe, as they say. Yeah, and I just want to echo what Jeff said. We're so appreciative that you took the time out. Such an inspiring story, such an inspiring journey, so many insights, so many lessons to learn from you. It's so good to see you again. So it was awesome that you were able to make this today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on yet another Every Other Wednesday. Jeff has aged before our eyes as we've done this session.
And may I just apologize?
I'm a bit offended, though. I'm a bit offended about the comments about how the overall good look and the IQ of the co-host has been increased with Joe on it. So I'm a little offended by that.
Now listen, don't go away, because Michael's getting ready to tell you about our exciting next episode.
And can I just apologize that I won't be there again?
We know. Yeah. So listen, again, everybody, thank you for showing up. Every Other Wednesday, eowednesday.com. If you want to look at the back recordings, and please spread the word, share the love, get your teammates, your colleagues, your family members. Promote us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, everywhere, on Facebook to
buy our books.
Sorry?
Buy our books.
Buy our books. Especially. Our next EO Wednesday is May 5th, and we are going to have a special guest again then. Yep. We're going to have the lovely, the talented, the charming, the witty, I'm just putting so much pressure on her, Lori Powers, who is a frequent participant here in Every Other Wednesdays. Woo. Lori is a group benefits specialist. She loves talking about culture and all things culture. She has all sorts of great insights, and a little bit of overlap with this week's topic. We are going to carry on and talk a little broader about just the whole idea of creating a culture that supports mental and physical well-being, mental and physical health, and all that good stuff. So please join us Wednesday, same bat channel, same bat time, May 5th. Thank you, everyone.
I'm glad she's in group benefits. She will benefit the group.
That's
right. Benefit the group will benefit.
Oh boy, we're here all week.
All right, guys.
Thanks, thanks very much for having me on.
Oh, Joe, it was great. Thank you. You really raised our standards here. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone for the kind comments. I really appreciate it. In 2003, I left the corporate world to do something that had a little bit more teeth and meaning and purpose for me. And this is what I get out of bed to do. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, guys. And yeah, be well.
All right. Thanks again.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
See you every other Wednesday.
Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone.
Bye.